Former campaign advisor to Donald Trump, former campaign manager to Donald Trump, and longtime advisor to Donald Trump, Steve Bannon, apparently doesn't understand how the Constitution works. Donald Trump will run and win again in 2018, Bannon says. Steve Bannon, who served as White House chief strategist, said Tuesday in an interview on News Nation that he and others are working on ways for President Donald Trump to seek a third term despite constitutional term limits. We're working on it. I think we'll have a couple of alternatives, Bannon told News Nation's Cuomo when asked how Trump could overcome term limits. We'll see what the definition of term limits is. Bannon expressed confidence in this effort, comparing it to Trump's 2024 comeback. I'm a firm believer that President Trump will run and win again in 2028, Bannon said. We've had greater long shots than Trump 2028, he said, adding that they're not preparing to talk about it publicly, but in a couple of months, I think we will be. When pressed on whether he was suggesting revolution or overthrow, Bannon rejected that characterization, describing himself as a huge believer in democracy, while claiming the country is experiencing a 1932-type realignment, comparable to the FDR era. So, let's see what term limits are. According to the Constitution, this is the amendment to the Constitution that calls out how many times somebody can serve as president. Now, you can see here, it goes on and on and on after the initial words, but the initial words clearly state, no person shall be elected to the office of the president more than twice. And it tells you how no person who has held the office of president or acted as president for more than 2 years of a term to which some other person was elected president shall be elected to the office of the president more than once. It just gives you all of the various breakdowns of all the various things. But right there in the first line, it makes it quite clear what the term limits for president are. No person shall be elected to the office of the president more than twice. So, if Steve Bannon literally believes that Trump will run and win in 2028, then he literally believes that we're going to have a constitutional amendment between now and 2028. Maybe he has some inside information that the rest of us are not privy to, but a constitutional amendment would take the passage of Congress by 2/3 of both houses. In other words, you need 2/3 of senators to vote for it. Never going to happen. You would need 2/3 of the House to vote for it. Never going to happen. If both of those things did happen, the president would then need to sign it. Trump would obviously sign that in a heartbeat. And then it would have to be ratified by the states. 38 states would have to ratify such an amendment in order for the law to be changed. The amount of obstacles that stand in Steve Bannon's way in order to get this done are stunning. So, either he doesn't understand how the Constitution works, he doesn't understand how amending the Constitution works, he's lying when he says that he's not thinking about overthrow and revolution, or there's some other plan in place, like Donald Trump would run as the VP to J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance gets elected and then resigns, and Trump is elevated to office. Which, in and of itself, is so far-fetched, it's insane. So, somebody needs to sit Steve Bannon down and explain to him that if he's a huge proponent of democracy, then he must understand that the Constitution does not allow this. Now, just so that we're clear, there has been an attempt to get a bill through Congress that would allow any president who served 2 terms, but those terms weren't consecutive terms, to run for a third. That would still require a constitutional amendment, because you can't make a law that goes against the Constitution like that. But more importantly, that would set it up so that only Trump could run for a third term, and people like Bush or Obama or even Clinton, who served 2 consecutive terms, would be ineligible. In other words, the Republican Party of 2025 is done being a democracy, and they just want Trump to be king for life.